summer of my 11th year is burned into my mind. You see, that summer was special because I had been told shortly after my birthday in May that in the fall we would be moving. Moving from central Missouri, where it was always gloriously hot and muggy in the summer and chill and cold in the winter, to some place called Washington State. I had no idea there was such a place. Washington, D.C. is what I thought for like 30 days before somebody clarified for me. So I was determined to wring every little bit of life out of my last summer in the town where I was born. So I spent every summer day playing as hard as I could in the heat. Sometimes we would go into the creek and wade up to our knees and look for crawdads. Sometimes we would go to the tree house, and the woods were so thick that we could go from tree to tree to tree just like Robin Hood. We could spend all afternoon and our feet would never touch the ground. But one of the things that fascinated me the most about the nights were the dreams that I began to have. I began to try and fly in my dreams. Have you ever had dreams? Not where you're flying, but where you're trying to fly. Did you know there's like 100 ways to try and fly? No, it's true. You can jump. You can jump and keep jumping higher and higher. And if you're really lucky, you can make those jumps stretch out so they almost feel like flying. The other thing apparently you can do is have a monster chase you. And you can run as fast as you can. And if you run really fast, you can actually come off the ground a little bit. And it's almost like flying. You can also climb a tree and jump out of a tree. And if you get really good at it, you can slow yourself down as you head to the ground. And that too is almost like flying. So between my days of sunshine filled with every little bit of play I could, and the nights full of every attempt at flying, I felt I was really squeezing the most out of this summer that I could. Until the day that the sunny playtime and the dreams of flying came together. You see, I had one of those minds that was always putting things together and taking things apart. If it was already together, I wanted to take it apart. That's why we never had a working toaster. But if things were apart, I always wanted to bring them together, which is why I was able to take my old Red Flyer wagon and make like 36 different models of go-karts. Some you steered with your feet, some with your hands, some with a rope. And one of my favorite things during this summer was that they were building these apartment buildings across the street from my house. And there was always stuff lying around, stuff that was apart, that needed to be built. And then came that fateful day when I saw on the television a man with a parachute flying. I had never dreamt of that. 100 different ways, running fast out of trees, jumping up and down, hopping, monster chasing. It had never occurred to me that you could hang something and it would fly you through the air. And right across the street were these big sheets of plywood. Just waiting to be built into something. So I grabbed my two best friends, Bill Challey, who lived next door to me, he owned a big St. Bernard, and Bill was shaped just like the St. Bernard. And then my other friend, Kevin Hudson, who was shaped like me, which was kind of like a pencil with a mop of white hair on top. And the three of us liberated a sheet of plywood drug it across the street to my garage, and started pounding nails, screwing screws. My dad had a whole pile of scrap lumber that I could touch, and a whole pile I couldn't touch. There was a whole bucket of screws and nails that I could touch, and a whole bunch of organized stuff I couldn't touch. And there were tools that I could touch and tools I couldn't touch. And we mostly kept to the borders. But in the course of one afternoon, we had completely transformed this sheet of plywood. Now it had 2 1x2 runners underneath of it. And it had 4 holes drilled in it with one of those old crank drills, because I couldn't use the power tools, and pieces of rope for handles. And if you sat on it and closed your eyes tight, you could imagine flying. But that wasn't good enough. We had to see if it would work. What's the use of building something if you don't know if it works or not? So now, between Kevin and I, we probably weighed 60 pounds. Now, probably 100, 120 pounds. But thankfully, Bill, Charlie more than tripled our weight combined. And between Kevin and I holding the sheet of plywood on the ladder and Bill pushing, we got it up to my roof. Now, my house was one of those great houses that was low to the ground on the front, but with a walkout basement in the back into a big grassy yard. So we have less than 1 story on the front and 2 stories in the back. Now, look, I'm not stupid. We tested it first, off the front. We let it go. No human beings involved. And you know what? It works great. It goes off and goes. So then we spent like 45 minutes getting it back up, and I was elected to go first. You notice the optimism in that, right? You go first. Right, because then Bill and Kevin were like, well, I want to go second. No, you go last. I want to go second. There's a lot of optimism for an 11-year-old with those words, you go first. So then we pushed it up and over the peak to the back, right at the top. And I held on. And because maybe gravity wasn't going to do it enough, Bill gave me a mighty push. I remember the beginning. I remember the beginning very, very well. First, there were the sounds. I hadn't expected the sounds. The horrendous scrape of the half-driven nails in our runners peeling grit off the shingles as it went down. Bill and Kevin yelling, go, 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 fly! And somewhere far off in the distance, this screaming 11-year-old boy. Ah! And then silence that seemed to last forever. And I remember my eyes were squeezed shut, so I couldn't see anything right away, but I could feel. First, I felt nothing. No pull of gravity. Nothing underneath me. Even the plywood didn't seem like it was attached to my butt anymore. And then I felt wind on my cheeks. And then I opened my eyes and found I was looking at the sky. And the last thing I remember is thinking 2 thoughts. 1, this is not right. And 2 was flashing back to the previous summer where I had gone not once, but twice to the emergency room. And thinking, if I go again this summer, my mother will kill me. What I don't remember is landing. But I must have. I don't remember getting up. But I must have. I remember the pride and the admiration of my friends Bill and Kevin. And I also remember their determination not to do it ever again. Because I also remember their surprise when they said, "You're alive!" But I remember one more thing to this very day. That night, when I dreamt, I didn't try to fly. I flew. And I heard nothing, but I felt the wind.